Welcome, welcome everyone, come one, come all, wherever you are, to meet this panel that came from the stars. We're just at the top of the hour. As always, we're going to give people a few moments to find their way here, get their snacks, get their kombucha, get their non-fat oat milk, non-caffeinated chai latte. Sounds like a nightmare, but whatever you need to do to bring yourself fully into this space, go ahead and grab it, get your munchies, and let's give our friends, our expanding community, a couple minutes to fully get here. Reminder for those that are new in this space, my name is Lindsey T.H. Jackson, and I have the honor of serving in the role of your host today to this amazing panel that I cannot wait to introduce you to. But you may not know that we also like to come onto camera in this space as though we were all in a big room together. Imagine it was like old school Oprah show, and I like ran in and I was like high-fiving people, and Laura had hyped up the audience and they were like, get it, get it, get it, get it. And so we were all hype and we like did thing, and there was a sign. I don't actually know how it was. I never got to go to the Oprah show because I was too young. But whatever that is, if you feel comfortable being on camera, we welcome you to find your way there. If you are in an environment where that is not okay, then that's not okay. You do you while you are here. But it is good to see some faces that I know and recognize from previous episodes, previous shows, previous events. Welcome, welcome, and welcome. Let us delve in. Welcome to our May session. Unfortunately, it didn't land on May 4th, so I could say may the force be with you. But, and then do we respond and also with you? I don't know. But welcome to our Unlearning the Model Minority Myth. And as always, our producer, Laura K. V. Chamberlain, has put together an amazing show for you. But let's start with our housekeeping. If you go to the bottom of your Zoom screen, there's something there that should say CC, where you can turn on live captions. If you click on that, you can also navigate to change it to different languages. So just knowing that that technology is not as advanced as we would all like it right now, but it is an option that you could experiment with if that would improve your access today to our conversation. We also have our live interpretation provided by Pro Bono ASL. And so they should be pinned to the top of your screen already. If for some reason that is not showing up on your Zoom screen, please reach out behind and somebody on the LTHJ Global Tech team will help you. If you haven't read our community guidelines, please do so. Those should have arrived to you in an email. But the main thing is that this is a space where we allow for difference of opinion through discourse. So we come into the space not with the intention to walk away going, I'm right, and now I feel that I am more right. Rather that we can enter into discourse, we can disagree, and we can coexist within community together, where we are all expanding, growing, being challenged. The show is recorded. Many people depend on the recording afterwards to be made available. The speakers, the ASL interpreters are always going to show up in the recording. If at the end, when we get to Q&A, you come live and ask a question to the panel, you will show up on that recording. If that's something that you do not want to experience, feel free to drop your questions into the chat window and we'll do our best to make sure that we get to it. Afterwards, Laura Kay and the team will send out some reflections from our conversation, from our discussion, from our discourse, to give you an opportunity to continue to engage with these thoughts and ideas. ASL interpretation at all LTHJ global events is, as always, provided by Pro Bono ASL, making the revolution accessible. See how I did that? Now, anybody want to hire me for a commercial? I just nailed that. I should do it again. That was so, I was just like, and voice actress, boom, done. But you see it here every time how amazing the team at Pro Bono ASL is. And if you are really thinking about promoting accessibility within your organization, I encourage you to think about them as your go-to partner. Who's hosting this event? We're hosting this event. Welcome to the LTHJ Global community, where we believe that diversity is the norm. It's not the exception. There's always diversity at play. What is going on? It looks like I'm like chewing on my lip or something, but I do look super smart in that photo. Thank you, Laura. At LTHJ Global, we provide DEI consulting. We help you with strategic DEI consulting and implementation, workplace learning, executive coaching, full suite of DEI and inclusive organizational design function. We work with a lot of HR leaders who are hoping to embed DEI within their organization, but have no idea where to start. We also come in and serve as your fractional DEI leadership as a part of your executive leadership team. If you are looking to really move from talk to action in your organization's DEI strategy, please reach out and we can start that discovery process with you. If, however, big ticket consulting is just not something that your small nonprofit or organization or startup can afford at this point, we developed Sojourn with you in mind. So go to sojourndei.com, our DEI SaaS tech platform, where step-by-step we walk you through the DEI journey, help you implement strategic plans, monitor tasks, map to compliance and accountability, and do all of your organizational training all through our DEI tech platform at sojourndei.com. Coming up this Monday on Sojourn, we have our Writing Inclusive Job Descriptions live workshop. If you haven't yet attended a workshop on Sojourn, your first one is actually free. So look for these materials afterwards where you will be able to register for a free workshop and learn about writing inclusive job descriptions. It is a tough job market right now in terms of hiring, and you want to make sure that your job ads, your job descriptions are really standing out. And so this is a great workshop to learn how to be an employee recognized brand that people are going, yes, not only are they talking the talk, but I see that they are doing the business of living their values. Let's take a deep breath together so that we can come fully into this space. Deep inhalation. Deep exhalation. Stretch something that needs to be stretched. Move something that needs to be moved. Eat something that needs to be eaten, and let's delve in. Look at this panel. Today we are talking about the model minority myth, and we are joined by the one and only Aparna Ray, Mike Kessel, and Hazel Valdez. Let's take a deep dive to learn a little bit more about them. Aparna Ray is the founder of Moving Beyond, a well-respected, much beloved mentor and teacher to so many of us in the DEI space, a kind of data leader. Data is her passion. I'm like, none of this is on the slide. I'm sorry, Aparna. I'm totally just spitballing from like what's in my heart. But Aparna Ray is an educator by training, innovator by chance, and disruptor by choice. Oh, that's a sexy line. With a passion for solving problems, connecting people, and building power, she is an award-winning multi-startup founder who leverages data to create inclusive workplaces. Aparna develops products that address complex DE&I, diversity, equity, and inclusion, and people challenges using real-time employee voice and impact data, grounded in human-centered design. In 2021, Aparna joined the elite 2% of women-owned businesses, with companies reaching $1 million in revenue. I'm going to say that again. Aparna joined the elite 2% of women-owned businesses, with companies reaching $1 million in revenue. Hand clap, everybody. Show her the love. Show her the love. Make it known. Make it known. The number's too small, but she has made it there. Welcome, Aparna Ray. I really want to encourage you all. We put the link there. May 11th, Aparna has her next DE&I data masterclass coming up. We've sent people to it. We've been learning from Aparna for so long within our body of work. If you really want to understand how to put data at the center of your DEI strategy, I cannot recommend this course enough. What is always true about Aparna is that she also tries to keep it as accessible price-wise. And so I'm just really trying to talk away any of your potential no's. This is the class to check out. Aparna Ray, welcome to the virtual couch. How are you?
Hi, thanks for having me here.
Thank you for being here. Let us meet Micah J. Wonjun Kessel, CEO of Empathable, a walk in the shoes, empathy-centered leadership and team training platform. Micah is a passionate advocate for human flourishing and empathy, dedicated to bridging cultural divides through immersive learning experiences. As the CEO of Empathable, Micah has developed the world's first walk in the shoes app, and I can't wait for you all to learn what Micah means by that, revolutionizing how we learn through experience and fostering empathy while reducing bias and polarization. With nearly 2 decades of experience in designing empathic experiences, Micah has advised and collaborated with organizations like Google, Disney, Microsoft, as well as international governments. A sought-after speaker, so much so that we tracked Micah down, who is overseas right now, could be out partying, but we were like, no, be with us, you are sought after. Micah has delivered keynotes and lectures at prestigious institutions such as Harvard Medical School, the Society for Neuroscience and Creativity, Darden School of Business, and TEDx. Micah, thank you so much for staying awake and joining us today. How are you, friend?
My pleasure to be here. Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Everybody needs to go to the Empathable site and check out this revolutionary technology. You can find the link there. Really, really interesting ways to be thinking about how you get your employees who are struggling to find their empathy muscles within this practice. Empathable is a way to potentially help them cross that divide. Promise me that you're going to check it out. Also on the virtual couch today is Hazel Valdez, Executive Director of PDX WIT, Portland Women in Tech, building a better tech industry by creating access, dismantling inequities, and fueling belonging. Hazel has recently, within the past year, stepped into this role, so we are so lucky that she managed to find time to join us here. Hazel, prior to her current role, was the Associate Director for the Oregon Bioscience Incubator. Hazel worked on various initiatives, including working with entrepreneurs and early stage bioscience and digital health organizations on their facility and resource needs, as well as OBI's DEI initiatives. Hazel has served as the operations manager at PDX WIT and has been part of the tech community for over 11 years. Hazel, welcome, welcome, welcome to the virtual couch today. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you for having me.
You're not tired at all doing all
all the things? Tired, very tired.
Yeah, we're in the honest space here. You're like, I'm well. Oh shit, no, I am actually extremely tired. Yes, everybody, please check out the event, the AAPI Happy Hour that's going to be hosted by PDX WIT on May 16th. It's a virtual event, so all of us can zoom in again with your kombucha and popcorn and make that event really come to life. Bring your, I don't have a word for that, so that we can really support more and more of this work that Hazel is doing within the tech community, and especially uplifting AAPI founders within the tech community. Hey, virtual couch, Aparna, Micah, Hazel. Actually, before we say that, another thing that we can do to support Hazel, Crystal is who, Hazel?
Crystal is my wife.
Yes, and is the hottest commodity now on the job market right now. So if you are looking to bring in an internal DEI leader within your organization, this is the time. You heard it here first, hot off the presses, that Crystal is in the market for a new church home. So I know some people, you know some people now, because you just met Hazel, we might be able to put in a good word for you. So if you're looking for some of the top DEI leadership to come in and really shake some shit up at your organization and move it forward, we might be able to get you an interview. Wait, is that how the job market works? Well, it does now in this space when you're looking at top DEI talent like that. My question for you, Aparna, Micah, and Hazel, is at what age did you stop feeling as though you had to buy into the model minority myth? At what age, Aparna Ray, did you feel like, I don't have to buy into this anymore?
I never had to buy into it. I mean, luckily for me, I spent the first 15 years of my life being just a person. And so I didn't even become a person of color until I moved to the States. And by that, I think by that point in time, I already had some, you know, like pretty significant identities as a creative, as an artist. And yeah, I just kind of bypassed what happens to immigrants when they're born and raised here.
What?
Also, also when I was young, you know, growing up in the Midwest, I was really biracial, Black biracial presenting. And so also nobody thought I was South Asian. Also, nobody thought I was South Asian. People either thought I was Black biracial or they thought I was Latina. And therefore, the expectations for me were not, you know, doctor, lawyer, engineer. I could just be a whole human out in the world doing kind of whatever I wanted.
This is Lindsey. So many people on this call right now are listening to your words and going, what? I was introduced to this type of oppression. I have memories of this type of oppression not being the norm, and can remember when I was introduced and forced that identity. Hazel, I think you're already having that reaction. What's coming up for you?
This is Hazel. Wow. Okay, so you asked the question, the age. I want to say when I stopped, probably around my 30s, but before then, so I came to the States when I was 5.5 years old. So formal education completely in the United States. But even before that, us coming to the States, my parents were already prepping us to make sure we knew how to speak English so that we could fit in, which is, wow, okay, they bought into it even before we even got to this country. That's kind of a horrible thing to know about what we had to do. So I'm pretty jealous, Aparna. I didn't get to discover that kind of freeness or freedom probably really until my 30s.
Wow, this is Lindsey. Micah, what's coming up for you?
Well, when did tomorrow? Never. Like never. The answer is no, I will never be able to. I mean, and this is a highly personal answer. I'm not speaking for, this is just one person's opinion. But, and this is Micah, by the way, I will never be able to escape the model minority myth, ever. I use it to my advantage. I am not going to stop using it to my advantage because I don't realize that I'm doing it until I'm doing it. And sometimes I am okay with doing it. Sometimes I am okay with doing it. I remember being in a therapy session with my therapist, of all people, like 6 years ago, well, maybe 5, and she asked me what it was like growing up as a person of color in the United States. And I said, what do you mean? This journey is epigenetically going to be moving beyond me to my children, to my children's children. And if they have an answer that is better than mine, I will be grateful.
Wow. Everybody out there, as you see, we're in it. Come fully into the space. I'm already shaking because this is going to be such a good conversation. Micah, let's go back. Can you define, somebody in the audience right now is going, I'm not sure I know what the model minority myth means. Can you define that term for us?
Whew. The model minority myth, to me, because I'm not looking at a definition and I want to be very mindful of saying that I'm not looking at a definition right now. The model minority myth to me means that there are groups of people from ethnic backgrounds, from cultural backgrounds that have been historically oppressed in more hidden ways, specifically in the United States of America, that give them somewhat of a pass compared to other people of color or of different identity features when it comes to opportunities, when it comes to being able to feel comfortable in a room, and the ultimate idea that you are somehow one of the good minorities that doesn't cause trouble, that, you know, doesn't do things that annoy that person, right? It's always through the perspective of one individual, but those individuals make up a society that make policies. So that's what it's all about. It's about deciding who's, you know, better in the trauma competition.
This is Lindsey. Micah, even you started to say they're not doing things that in my head, I immediately went, Black people are doing, right? There's often within this, Aparna, can you take it? Yeah.
Yeah, well, I feel like part of the reason that I don't suffer from being beholden to the model minority myth is because almost immediately when I moved to the States, people assumed that I was either Black, biracial, or Latino. And what are our expectations for people of those demographic groups, right? And as an educator, a few years later, you know, when I was a public school teacher in Chicago, I constantly heard my peers who were predominantly white women saying, well, like so-and-so doesn't need to be in advanced placement because like, what are they going to do? Go to college? And I was like, well, maybe they want to go to college, but they're also like 12 years old, you know? So yeah, so I think this is like I don't know, it's not really a double-edged sword, but the model minority myth for me is like one of the ways in which we uphold anti-Blackness. It's one of the ways in which, you know, we push down working class people who are often Black and brown, but not the good immigrants, right? Like the South Asians and other groups of Asians, for instance. So yeah.
This is Lindsey. Is it a way also that we further divide groups within oppression in, if we allow to stand Isabel Wilkinson's work around caste, is it a way that we saw this within apartheid South Africa, continue the caste system to say that within the tiers of oppression, there's still some, whether through melanin, whether through country of origin, of indigeneity with our ancestors, you're still better than them. So keep trying this, oppressive system, because you might get to the top. What do you think, Hazel?
I keep coming back to that question, what is the model minority myth for me? First, I'm going to start there. I will say it comes in very many forms. Growing up, I think maybe some folks can relate in this audience where it's about expectation. But that expectation is from your parents, and your parents were from their parents. And then you come to this country, then it became America's expectation of your melanated body to be this excellent person. Like the best example growing up would be, oh yeah, you know those Asian folks, they're good at math, so they'll be fine. And that's a stigma that even my nieces and my nephews still carry today. And for the record, I hate math. I am more of a literature language person, but it's that expectation part. I think, Micah, to your point, it will be continual for me because I will fall into that a lot. Our team just took the Clifton Strengths analysis, and I'm a relator, but I'm also a belief person. So in that is already this deep seed of, is what I'm saying really what I'm wanting to do for me, or was that an expectation of X, and what is X? So thankfully in therapy, been able to really recognize when that's occurring. And then in terms of the somewhat of a caste-based dynamic, in the Filipino community, there is that for sure. I've experienced it just even going to vacation there. And as soon as I land off the plane, the first time I landed, when I went back, the phrase was, I smell an American. Like, what? What's that all about? And, I don't relate to that in that way. Yes, I am an American citizen, but I'm still pretty much a Filipina. But in our Filipino community, there is, and sadly, because of the United States, the Philippines being a territory of the United States, that kind of oppression seeped into what Filipinos thought about coming to America. And a perfect example, my ex, when we went to vacation for the first time, said, hey, so I notice everything's in English. Really? Come. And then, this is not Crystal, this was my ex. Thank God, let me just put that out there. Wow. And so and even then, in that caste system, my aunts and uncles in the Philippines had this expectation that I'm this successful person. I don't do my laundry. I don't get my car washed. I'm like, I do all those things myself. I do not have a maid. In a third world country, going back to the Philippines, it's very uncomfortable to know that in our household, we had 3 maids in a third world country. And then I come here and it's like, no. And my mom and I have had clashes over that, where I've asked her, do they have to be here? Because I can cook. We can do the laundry. And she said, nope, when in the Philippines. Like, oh, finish the sentence. When in Rome.
This is Lindsey. I feel as though we're starting to tease this apart. And if there's one thing that comes out of these unlearning sessions, we should start having like go-to therapy group that we recommend, Laura. You know,
Yes.
everybody's finding their like, oh, okay, it wasn't just that I'm the problem. There's this entire system here that we're alluding to. But you all have started to touch on it, and I'm wondering what else you're willing to share before we get very academic here. How has this, if we use W.E.B. Du Bois's work, is it like a double consciousness, both an expectation from your parents, an expectation of society as to who and what you are meant to be, while also there's the me that's Aparna, there's the me that's Micah, there's the me that is Hazel. How has that played out for you in your life, Micah?
No, this is Micah. I don't know if there are other Koreans out there on this call. You know, I speak other languages, German, French, Italian, Dutch, Flemish. I don't speak Korean. It's my mother's language. Why don't I speak Korean? Because, there we go. Thank you, Clara. Why don't I speak Korean? Because in a way, and again, just my circumstance, it was more Korean. Culturally, it was more Korean for my mother to not teach me Korean than to teach me Korean. The drive of my Korean mother to make sure that we assimilated, right? Her next door white neighbor, who said to her, if you teach them 2 languages, they'll never speak English well. And her listening to that and then choosing to stop teach us Korean when my brother and I were children was more Korean than her actually teaching us Korean. Yeah, it like being steeped in, I mean, okay, I'm just going to pause there. Doesn't that say everything? Like, doesn't that say everything about what it means in this particular string of identities that I happen to be? I don't know if anyone can relate to or has a personal story in the audience. If so, please do put it in the chat so I can feel our connection of a moment in their lives when they had to go against their own culture but that was like that was like even more culturally who they were, to go against their own culture.
Yes, yes, yes. Please, everybody, this is Lindsey. Drop those into the chats. And also allowing to that beautiful prompt, Micah, that people may have a similar experience across intersectional identities. And please share those too. Aparna, big head nods coming up there. What's coming up for you?
Yeah, this is Aparna. This is not my experience, right, of not speaking my mother tongue, because I came a little bit later in life to the US, but it's something that I have seen. We call them ABCDs, which stands for American Born Confused Bases. Basi is like the term for South Asians. And you know, like those of us that immigrated later in life, or even folks that came for either graduate school or they came to work, there's such a distinct difference in the culture and presentation and priorities of folks that are first generation, I guess, American, South Asian, like Asian Americans, which, you know, like in and of itself, like the terminology of first gen is like, you're no longer going to be that other thing that you are. You're essentially first generation American. I really feel like that terminology, like first gen, is like you're first gen American, you're first gen middle class, right? We say like students who are first gen college students, you're first generation middle class. Like you don't have to be like those dirty working class people anymore from here on out. So this term first generation, but I have watched for 2 decades my Desi peers who were born and raised in the United States, they don't acknowledge or like eating Indian food. Certainly, they're not packing it in their tiffins because they learned really early on that it's smelly and it's gross. And I think it cuts across not only Asian identities, but all ethnic identities, where if your food has a smell that's not familiar, then you were mocked as a kid, and you learn really quickly that it's always very safe to take a PB&J or eat the school lunch, which like in the United States is like so disgusting in most places. It's like barely food. And you shouldn't speak your mother tongue. And so like I hear other South Asian folks like try and speak in Hindi, and it's like it's comical and it's really sad because their language has been stolen away from them, and they sound like, you know, Apu from Simpsons. Like they sound like a caricature version of what they could sound like, or their, you know, or their connection to their identity is like Bollywood or being in like a dance troupe, but like not in a mainstream kind of a way. Like it's the thing that you do that's like a cultural activity, not a core part of you. And so, yeah, I mean, it makes me, yeah, it just kind of makes me really sad that part of being an immigrant and being like a quote unquote minority in the United States, the social contract is that you give up your culture. You give up your culture. Like you eat peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, which is also like, why? Like that, like, why is that food? Like I would rather eat like anything else, you know, or like Velveeta cheese, like also not food. Yeah, I mean, like this social contract, and we're experiencing and talking about it as, you know, like maybe millennial and Gen X folk on this call, but white folks also did it, right? They just did it earlier in the last century, where they gave up their food and their culture and their language to become white. And I'm just kind of like not here for it, because Indian food is like, it is the best cuisine of the world. And yeah, like I stand by it.
This is Lindsey, and I've been to your house, and oh damn, that is some good food. And I'm absolutely shaking. You know, when you hear something that just like electrified your cells. Everybody heard when Aparna said this idea, the way that we use first generation insert within our culture is synonymous with, oh, thank goodness, now you can give up that dirty past. You can give up that low income past and those dirty ways of existing, that dirty culture with their dirty language and their different traditions. Let that marinate for a moment and really ask yourself, how many times have you done that, internally directed, or at others where you're going, oh, thank goodness that now you're, wow, wow, wow. Hazel, to this conversation around, you know, the way that it has impacted us, where can you identify, like, where has that lived in your body, in your own healing work? Is it, you know, in my own work of unlearning anti-Blackness, it lived a lot in my gut. All the things that I didn't say, all that anger, just getting pushed down, which is why Black women suffer from all sorts of gut issues. Where has it impacted you on a somatic level?
My neck and my gut. And I've had, oh gosh, I've had so many issues with my gut over the years that I thought there's really something wrong with me. Like, what is that? And of course, you know, things like, yes, my gallbladder got removed, but that wasn't it. It was just like when anything occurred and the subconscious of me just internalized so much, then it just showed up in this horrible way for that next few hours. You know, unlike Aperna, and Wunjun, I came to this country knowing my language, and then I didn't get to speak it enough to family. But then as we got older in school, and I speak a dialect called Ilocano, or that is the dialect that I grew up in, and I can barely understand it. And then the quote unquote national language is Tagalog, and I can understand that too. And I find myself, interestingly enough, that I actually seek it or get really excited when I hear it, because, oh my God, these are my people. Where have they been? When I first moved to Portland, I honestly thought there were no Filipinos in the state. That's how I was very made aware of my melanated skin. I'm like, this is the first time I'm really feeling lonely and not having community in that respect. But my gut has always given me that indicator, something's not up, and I need to explore why it is this is happening. And it may have been 2 days ago that was happening, but then it finally showed up within me physically to really unpack why I'm feeling the way I feel. So yeah, it's really cool and very unique that you all have a different perspective of, and I love that, because for me, I've always thought, is it just me? What am I doing wrong here? Why can't I find my people? Or when I do find them, I'm hesitant or shy to go talk to them, but I at least in the Filipino community, we have a nod. And it's like when I see them, we nod, we smile, and we move on, because we at least know, yeah, okay, I'm not the only one in this room anymore.
Yes. This
Can
is
I-
Lindsey.
Can I add just something to that? This is Micah. I notice a solidarity in the Filipino community that I am jealous of.
Oh,
Amen.
I think nationalistic people, the Filipinos, I think so. Even if we don't know them, like I don't know Manny Pacquiao, but when he wins a fight, I'm like, yes. Or hearing about like Vanessa Hudgens in just normal pop culture, I didn't know that. Or Dave Bautista, I didn't know that. And when I did, it made my heart feel so good. It's weird, but I love it, because at least I know we're out there in community, and those folks are also using the platform to make the statement that we are here, yes, we're brown, and we're very proud of who we are.
This is Lindsey. Micah, what is it that you wish for?
I wish for that acknowledgement of, among Asian peers. And, I'm talking to chief people officers, chief diversity officers, and every once in a while CHROs across industries and organizations on a daily basis, as many of us are here, right? We're talking about 20, 30 conversations a week, and a percentage of those leaders are Asian. And there is the lightest touch of an acknowledgement, if not spoken out. And it still feels challenging to speak out. I have an easier time with Black colleagues, with African American colleagues, speaking out our people of color solidarity than I do with other Asian leaders and organizations, unless the meeting is explicitly with like an AAPI alliance organization. Then sure, then it's there, right? Because we know. But if it's like I'm meeting with company X, right, in the Fortune 50, and like the leader is Asian and I'm Asian, I'm not, that thing's not happening. That thing that I want to feel happening is not happening. If they're not Korean, right? If they're, even if they could be East Asian, they could be South Asian. Like it's where is it? Where is it? Why is it taking so long?
Oh yeah, this is Lindsey. In my head, and Amanda Seals, one of her comedies, she talks about how Black women, we're like, we give compliments like, go ahead, polka dots.
Okay,
You know,
polka
like,
dots.
I'll enter into a meeting. I'm like, all right, melanin. Oh, you know, yes. We need to start a call. I see some people in the chat talking about the nod. We need to get you the nod or the foot stamp. All right. Polka dots. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, I just want to take a moment and thank you to Dr. Sanhari, who reached out to me. Can we, Aparna, you started to take us there. Can you just wax lyrical for a moment, a little bit more about the ways that colonialism has really, oh yeah, the shudder, has really even shaped, as Micah is saying, that you could be in a context where you have been, you know, one of 5 Asian people in your entire organization, and you're in a room alone and still not feeling as though you could just say like, let's run together this one time. Can you give us some of that history?
Oh my gosh, can I give you some of that history?
I know,
This
I'm
is
terrible.
Yeah, just that. I feel like it is even more complex than just colonialism. I think that there are class and caste dynamics, and there's a framework by Leticia Nieto that I use and learn from, and I think you do too. And there are folks in this room that are probably familiar with her work around agent and target rank. And then there is there's status, right? And so the simplest way for me to describe it would be that colonization has made us see whiteness and different elements of whiteness in different times and places as being more desirable than what our culture offers. And one dimension of that, you know, could be colorism. The other dimension that I see playing out in the United States, but probably also it plays out in England and in other white dominant countries, is being white, or I think for me, it's like acting white, because you're obviously not white. Acting white is, and I said this earlier, right? Like it's assimilating. It's not owning your culture. And so, yeah, you could be, and I've had this experience, maybe less and less because of the spaces that I'm in, but I used to have this experience in my 20s or even in my late teens, where I would see another Desi person and I would want to connect around our Desiness, and they would really push back. Like they wouldn't want to speak with me in Hindi, even if that was the language they spoke. You know, they wouldn't want to make small talk on like what movies we were watching or what our favorite like musicians were. They wouldn't want to do that, right? Like they would just be at an arm's length. And I've seen it with my cousins who, even growing up in India, were socioeconomically advantaged. They were upper middle class, and they were going to elite private schools where like they had this accent where I was like, where are you getting this accent from? And in my 30s, you know this, like I went and lived in India for a couple of years, and I finally heard this phrase, and it's like the United States of Bangalore, or the United States of Delhi, or the United States of Mumbai. And it's, you know, wealthy people who are sending their kids to these elite private schools that are, I mean, if you think like any elite school in the United States is fancy, I mean, they rival the fanciest schools. And yeah, I mean, these kids are consuming lots of American popular culture and the accents and like, yeah, the whole 9 yards. And my cousins had that kind of an upbringing, and I come from a pretty working class family. My parents don't have a 4-year degree. They didn't go to a 4-year university. And so I had a very different background. And I hear them talk about how like Indian food gives me tummy ache. I would rather eat a salad. And I'm just like, please kill me right now. Like, why do you hate yourself? You know, Indian clothes are so itchy. I can never walk in a sari. Oh, okay. Well, that's not as cute a statement as you think it is. It's so, you know, like the amount of internalized depression there is pretty deep. And yeah, and so are those like lingering effects of colonization? Yes. And we have awareness. And so I think some of it is like, you know, we're continuing to choose, like we're continuing to opt into some of those behaviors and preferences because they also help us advance in workplaces, and they feed into this really vicious cycle where like we're pretending to be white so that we can advance in our careers. But then what is that? And, you know, like Micah can probably speak much more intelligently around the role of empathy in this cycle. How are we going to create the inclusion of the DE and I, right? Like, how are we going to create the I if people of color are essentially disavowing their cultural identities, and creating these vicious cycles where we're like wanting to be white because we think white is better or good or virtuous or cultured, and we're not centering other people, even from our cultural or ethnic groups, that don't have the markers of whiteness, goodness, culturedness.
This is Lindsey. For everybody, even as Aparna is sharing that, can we talk quite openly, I hope, about even with, you know, Micah is talking about his Korean identity, Aparna's talking about her Desi identity, Hazel's talking about her Filipina identity. Can we talk about the ways that even within this big umbrella term that we use of Asian, Aparna's talking about colorism, the ways that often still, when people think of Asian, they think of certain pockets of Asia, but they're not thinking about India. They're not thinking about the Philippines. They're not thinking about, you know, a Desi identity and a Filipina identity being on par with a Chinese identity or a Japanese identity. Can we talk about within our cultures, the same way within Black culture, we can have what we, if we take it from shadeism or colorism or class, how do we then see that perpetuated within organizations / within our own homes even?
This is Hazel. So at PDX WIT, you know, our North Star is dismantling inequities, fueling belonging. And it used to not be dismantling inequities. It actually used to say dismantling racism. And that was changed when I took the helm, which I still wonder about. And it bothers me a little bit, because our organization is set so that, or exists because underrepresented folks, women, underrepresented BIPOC communities are who we serve. So yeah, I think in organizations, and you know, I think I told Laura this, I used to walk into board meetings being the 1, youngest, 2, Asian, 3, lesbian, in a C-suite room. And you know what I did for them? They asked me to get their coffee order, but yet then they said you can have a seat at the table. At the time that was happening, I didn't think anything of it because I was pretty much of white mind, even though I had a brown heart. And I hated knowing that about me back then. So now in organizations, I'm less forgiving. Actually, I'm really less forgiving, and that's given me, I don't know, some org gave me the term, she's a loose cannon if you're going to put her on a panel. I'm like, cool. That means I bothered somebody and I made a point. And they know that I'm not going away. So that's, you know, to me, that's a feather in my cap that I've actually been practicing what I preach. And that's very much a big belief system of me, knowing that we're trying to do the right thing for the communities we serve. Yet, if you have a board of directors that's completely white and you talk about equity and inclusion, you might want to start there, because that's really affecting, even if your ED means well, and I sit on two, they mean well, and they want to diversify the board, but there's a faction of the old, I call them the old guard thinking, not the 21st century thinking, that is still perpetuating. And, you know, to be frank, I always think in my head, God, please retire, just retire, because I am sick of this.
This is Lindsey. Micah, building on what Hazel said, can you unpack for those listening today, what does white adjacent mean? Just like how we often talk about, you know, we see terminology developing. We used to talk a lot about double consciousness, and now we might use the language code switching more. In the past, we might have used the language model, minority, myth. More and more you see younger people saying white adjacent. They're playing white adjacent. This board is all white people and those who are white adjacent. What does that mean? Oh, you're on mute.
I haven't thought much about that term, so I'm going to pass on this actually.
Thank you, pass. Aparna, you want to take this one?
Yeah, for me, white adjacent is if you think of the hierarchy of, you know, like race and class in the United States, at the very top are like wealthy white people, other white folks, and at the very top are the model minorities. And then I would also say I would grade them by class. And then we know, of course, you know, who's at the bottom. So like white adjacent is having, I would say, both class proximity and being the most model of the model minorities.
Wow, wow. In, I think, so much of the work, this is Lindsey, that we do within organizations, and what made me think of that, of what Hazel was talking about, is we love to say we diversified our board, we give all of the minority individuals the role of getting the coffee and of being on the cover of the board, you know, retreat picture or on the website. But often we see that still the people that manage to break that glass ceiling, if you've really broken it, are those that are just really able to assimilate well and quickly, or maybe have been invited to assimilate from a very early age. And so this is for all of those DEI champions out there thinking about when we're talking about diversifying an organization, a board, a school, an institution, that it's not just, I got some people with a little bit more melanin in their skin here, right? That we're looking for diversity of beliefs, of values, of ways of making meaning, ways of problem solving, ways of thinking about growth versus development, not just, we got a little bit of extra pepper in our rice. Let's hear some questions from our audience. Reminder for those that are first timers here that we always allow ourselves to go to that 2:15 time slot to allow just what is coming up and allow a natural end to things. And this conversation certainly is not done, but understanding that if you need to leave at the top of the hour because work is calling, small humans are calling, four-legged friends are calling, we get it. And you can watch the recording to get what you miss. Let's hear. We have from Dijana, they said, but are we people of color subscribing to whiteness because historically, when you rock the white boat, it many times is professionally catastrophic and detrimental in higher education? Do we participate in these behaviors because it is safer to stay unremarkable? Micah, do you want to take this one?
Sure, yeah. At Empathable and in my own collaborative research with scientists studying emotions and empathy and bias, we think about how empathy is kind of like a ladder that you climb that doesn't have a middle, has a peg on either side. And it's like you go up one peg at a time. Even with a ladder with a peg in the middle, you still go up 1 foot at a time, but it's like a little more stable. This one's a little bit less stable, it's a little shakier. And on the one side, you're acknowledging the validity of other people's experiences to be as valid as your own, because that's really what empathy is, right? It's not about understanding feelings. We'll never understand feelings, ours or anybody else's. Not really, right? Yeah, for sure. Right. But what empathy is you realize my mother, as a Korean woman, is going to be holding values about being an immigrant, being Asian, that are not my values. And I might disagree with some of them, but it doesn't make her experience less valid, because my mother is not a concept. My mother is an experience, right? My mother is not a concept, she's an experience. And then the benefit of acknowledging the validity of her experience is that I can acknowledge the validity of my own. So today on this journey, I'm focusing on the way that I can work on my self-criticality, because being Asian for many people is about how critical you are in yourself. Right? And I think to be less hard on myself is also to put the focus on something that I have control over. Right? It's a value. It's a good value because it's immediate. It's under my control. And it will probably make the world better, as in I'll probably drive my colleagues less crazy if I'm a little bit less perfectionistic. And the truth is, I think personally, and for everyone who's been hard on themselves today, maybe you can hear this and to be a little bit less hard on yourself for whatever you were hard on yourself for today, huh? Because probably it's a little bit cultural too for many of us, Asian or not. Hey, thank you, Tori. I'm with you. And so with that in mind, is that standing up for Asian heritage? For me, it is. It's the validity of my own experience to stand up for Asian heritage, to be a little bit less perfectionistic and a little bit less hard on myself, so that I can show up as me in homogenous white corporate environments and actually feel like I have a voice that isn't trying to match the voice of, privileged people in charge, but is actually trying to cultivate my own voice in its full validity. And then I can stop and listen to the validity of their experience where they are today, because they are also not concepts. No one in this room is a concept, right? And I might not agree with it. I might not even celebrate it, but I can acknowledge it. And after I do that, I can go back to my own voice and I can find that valid again, right? And that is climbing the ladder. If we try to do both at once, things get real confusing real fast, right? But if we take turns and we say, this is my time, I'm going to fill it with exactly who I am right now, without being too perfectionistic or too hard on myself. And then in just 10 seconds, I'm going to stop talking. And then it's back to you, Lindsey. And I'm going to be here for you in the fullness of who you are. That's what empathy is, folks. That's what empathy is.
This is Lindsey. Let's just end the call, Laura. I'm just click. We're done. Everybody needs to go meditate on that shit for like a good. Call your therapist. Get them on speed dial from now on. After Unlearning every Wednesday. Holy shit, Micah. I'm normally good at mirroring back, but I mean, everybody here today needed to hear that their, you know, dominant caregiver was not a concept. And that, you know, there's validity in their experience. And, you know, as so many of us often are trying to mire our ways through that, you know, our parent often was doing the best that they knew how with the tools that they had at the time. And now, as adults, adult children, finding that voice and the validity in that, and also that practice of what is the voice potentially from, you know, our home of origin that we want to continue allow to take up rent, take up space in our mind, and what are the voices that no longer serve us, that need to be released. And I know there are people on this call who are struggling every day with that voice inside your head who is crueler than you would ever be to a friend or a loved one. But you let them talk to you like shit. Oh my God, my God. Hazel, what else is there to say about this safety that we sometimes feel like we're grappling with? If I were to actually speak up, if I were to actually show my solidarity with other Desis, other Filipino, other Koreans, Japanese, Chinese, where was it? Going back up, you know, Cham, Malaysian, Khmer, Lao, Mian, among folks within this organization, that would be the day that I would be fired. That would be the day that I would lose any status that I had amassed.
This is Hazel. I think for each of us, I would hope, because of as Micah has asked you to be less critical of yourself, one of the things that I know I've had discussions with my team and with other folks is within a space, your awareness of that space comes hopefully that instinctual practice of safety. Now, in kind of what Dejana had brought out with regards to, are we kind of fostering that in that whiteness in a space, or what I think, how do I want to put this? I know when my voice tells me that it's wrong, and I will say something. I also know when I say something that there will be some kind of impact, because impact works both ways. Whoever's giving me a feedback and what I'm about to say, you know, I in my mind, I make it a meme before I say anything that will probably have some implication, and it's this, and it's me being hauled off to jail, or God forbid, the person on the other end, that scary meme of, I might get shot if I say this right now. So it's first the safety of you, your groundedness and your belief system and your capacity to be present enough to know that what you're about to say is going to impact the next few moments of whatever that situation may be. And when I was younger, I was a very angry kid because of those expectations and all those voices. Who was I going to be? Throw in that intersectionality of being female, Asian, and lesbian, and then let's just get more powder keg. In my mind, that was just in my mind. But then take it into a boardroom, into a team meeting or a product meeting of some kind, and one little innuendo from someone across the room is probably going to set me off. But in learning over the years what that actually means, I'm not playing into white supremacy. I'm first remembering what my therapist has taught me, which is safety first, Hazel, because it can't. And as much as you want to unleash, that's why I box, because hitting something is very cathartic when you can't really hit the human. It's more that, okay, I need to take that one breath, give them an answer that will give them at least a moment of pause, and then I can leave knowing that I just made a point, and then I have to let that shit go, and then take it out on the bag, of course. But for the most part, it's always been that sense of safety. I've been known to flap my gums too much, and I'm okay with that, because at the end of the day, I'm not even saying that I'm right or wrong. I'm just saying how I felt and how you made me feel, how the impact of your words really made my stomach sick, and you made me less like you because of that.
This is Lindsey. I know some of us on the call are like, I cannot envision a world where I could do that, but it is a practice to be able to say, I can set clear boundaries while still being kind. What you said was inappropriate. This is the impact. Don't do it again. I've left you intact, or as Micah is giving us language, I've allowed, through this empathic practice for you to not just be a concept, and my feelings not to be just a concept, but I don't have to hold that in my body. While also demonstrating, Hazel, that I also don't have to pull a gun out and shoot you because you're in my driveway, right? I can go and take all that physical energy that I have and find a healthy outlet for it. Aparna, can you finish us off today with, in your opinion, especially as so many of us are starting to shift our language to stop talking about this minority group. When we talk about people of color, it's the majority around the globe. What is the potential? What are the opportunities? And if you totally want to nerd out data wise, I'm here for it too. But like, what is the potential for more solidarity between Black, Indigenous, Korean, Chinese, Indian, right? Why do we not see that solidarity enough within organizations? What is the opportunity there for that solidarity, and how might our still identifying as just white, as you said, because they were also invited to strip themselves of their Irish identity, their Scottish identity, their Romanian identity, their right? What does that potential accomplishment look like? I realize that was a two-part question. I apologize.
Yeah, so I mean, I'll offer a stat that I actually saw recently, because of course, I read reports as part of my bedtime routine.
Yes, I know, I love it.
It's a very common trend with fellow nerds. I know you're in this call, you read hella reports when you're going to bed or when you're waking up. And it said something to the effect of, by 2040, 80% of the US population is going to be either people of color or they're going to be mixed race, or maybe it was by 2050, but 80% of the wealth is going to be concentrated with white folks. that's where the wealth is going to be concentrated, right? And Lindsey, you know this. I have like increasingly a lot of angst around DEI as a profession, as a framework, as a whatever you want to call it. Because it's constantly using buzzwords and sometimes like really untrue things around like the business case for diversity. Actually, like white supremacy wins 100% of the time. It's a rare day that white supremacy isn't winning. So white supremacy is gonna win. And by the way, like they're playing by a different set of rules. They're playing by a different set of rules. And so when you look at the data, what we see time and again is that it doesn't matter that there are going to be more and more Black and brown people in the United States or in the UK or in other, white dominant places. What's going to continue to be true unless we are in solidarity with each other is they're going to own us. They're going to own the majority of wealth and hence they're going to own us. And so where I've been gravitating towards more and more over the last couple of years is, which is, like, this is the place that I came into as professionally. I was a teacher and I was an organizer and I, sat through union negotiations in my 20s is we need class solidarity. We need class solidarity. Like those of us that are, Black and brown, Indigenous folk that had the opportunity and honestly the luck to access higher education, which has then gotten us a higher paying job, sometimes, not always. We can't be poo-pooing. First of all, we can't be poo-pooing other people of color who don't have that. They're not we're not better than them because we have education or we live in a nicer house. They're producing our foods. They're like taking care of our babies. They're, helping our parents age and transition, hopefully a little bit more gracefully than we would be able to ourselves. But I think class solidarity also means that we can't be continuing to look down, right? Like the liberal elitism around, well, those people that watch Fox News. Yes, they do. And so part of having class solidarity is also recognizing like the real pain and trauma and like generational loss of culture that they're experiencing. Like I'm not saying like go be best friends with a Republican. I'm not saying that, but yeah, I mean, just because they haven't learned how to weaponize the language of social justice and equity and inclusion doesn't mean that they're worse than us or that we're better than them. So let's just end with the virtue signaling. And I would say specifically for folks that are South Asian, and I'm going to speak about this identity group because it's one that I own, for decades and maybe forever, we have not been in solidarity with Black folks specifically. And in the last couple of years, I've seen a trend of South Asian women pairing up with Black women and leveraging their Blackness for like social political gains. And stop that shit. Like literally stop it. It is absolutely disgraceful. I'm not here for it. I mean, I'm 100% here for having a diverse group of friends and colleagues, but like, are you in real relationship or have you seen an opportunity to increase like your followers on LinkedIn or TikTok or what have you? And so, but I really do think that at the end of the day, like we need to have class solidarity and we need to be pulling people up along with us.
This is Lindsey. Wow. As always, Aparna, Micah, Hazel, just wow. We're hanging on your every word. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I wish we had more time. Please follow up. You can attend Aparna's upcoming masterclass and just so much to learn there. please check out Empathable, Micah's work, and think about how you might continue some of the lessons that Micah started to introduce us to here within your organization. Please connect with Hazel to really help to support BIPOC leaders, LGBTQIA leaders, veteran leaders within the technology space. Do the work. We've talked about it. We've theorized. We've datified. We've emoted. Now go do the work. And to all the Republicans on the call, I see you there. You go do the work too. Get your people. We'll see you next week, friends. Bye.